Welcome to the Pharma Forum podcast. This is web editor Nicole Raleigh on site in Chicago for the final day of ASCO 2025, and my guest today is Dr. Stacy Lindborg, CEO of IMUNON, who will be discussing the data presented by the company at the Congress this year and the gynecological cancer field a little more generally. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So firstly, Stacy, I like to ask guests on the podcast to introduce themselves a little for listeners and share a bit about your journey to doing what you do today at IMUNON.
A great question. I think journeys are always so interesting to learn about. Mine started with graduate training in statistics. I have a PhD in statistics, which really led me through my 3 decades in the pharmaceutical industry to think at different levels of strategy of how we propel forward productivity in terms of bringing forward new medicine. So I've spent 3 decades starting out in big pharma, Lilly, and really had a great opportunity to learn macro view of our business and the science of drug development and testifying in different regulatory agencies. So really just getting to see the big picture. So it's a real honor to now be CEO of a really innovative company that's knocking on the door of ovarian cancer.
That's an unusual beginning. I wasn't quite prepared for that, but thank you for sharing that, Stacey. So yes, we're at ASCO, so let's bring it back to the data in the oncological field. And the oral presentation at ASCO from IMUNON was of data from the phase 2 OVATION 2 study of IMNN-001 and IL-12 immunotherapy in women with newly diagnosed advanced ovarian cancer. And the data is also being published this very day, 3rd of June, in the peer-reviewed journal Gynecologic Oncology. Can you therefore, Stacey, start by describing the landscape of unmet need for patients with advanced ovarian cancer?
Yeah, it's such a devastating disease that we continue to see very consistent rate of diagnosis each year. So in the US, it's about 20,000 women newly diagnosed with ovarian cancer every year. In the world, it's around 300,000. So it's unfortunately, an unrelenting disease that almost always is fatal. And, we've seen some great advances in the treatment paradigm for ovarian cancer in especially the maintenance period with PARP inhibitors. And we've seen some advances in other lines. But what has really been absent are new approaches for women when they're newly diagnosed. And this is where we chose to target our clinical development. It is a time when our bodies and the immune system is at its prime, and you're able to tap into the immune system before it is, the cancer treatments, chemotherapy and surgery both compromise the immune system. And so a product like IMUNON-001, which is harnessing the immune system, is really we're training the immune system very early and also before surgery, right? Before, while there still is cancer and a very burdened body. So it's, from a landscape perspective, it's really critical to go early. We know that most women are diagnosed late in their cancer stage, so very often stage 3B or 4. And so it is a place that has effectively not evolved with any overall survival benefits for 25 or more years.
Yes, it's really very bleak indeed. So what does the data potentially offer that's been presented here at ASCO from the OVATION 2 study? Can you tell us?
Yeah, so the OVATION 2 trial is a randomized trial versus IMUNON plus the standard of care chemotherapy versus chemotherapy alone. So it really enables an insight into what can IMUNON-001 do in the micro-tumour environment and also with the clinical endpoints that we've observed. And so what's really very exciting, number one, is we know that this cancer is a very attractive target for an immunotherapy, and yet we've seen immune checkpoint inhibitors be unsuccessful in moving the needle on overall survival. So it makes our phase 2 trial and what we're moving now into phase 3 to replicate very exciting, because in this trial of just over 100 patients, 1-to-1 randomized, we're seeing the overall survival, the median, be extended by 13 months over the standard of care. And when I look at the clinical, the clinical endpoints and then the underlying translational data, we know that the product is doing what it's designed to do, which is allowing and encouraging the cells in these women to produce IL-12 in very high levels. It's staying very concentrated in the micro-tumour environment. We know that these levels are extremely low in blood, which has been a really challenging problem for other IL-12 focused therapies from a toxicity standpoint. So we know that we're not only producing IL-12 levels in the biology is changing in the micro-tumour environment. We see lots of downstream cytokines and other biomarkers which are showing that we fundamentally change the micro-tumour environment. And then when you look at the clinical endpoints, we also see very consistent effects across all of the endpoints that we studied. So, when we observe stronger effects, like in subgroups, for example, HRD positive is one subgroup that's playing a prominent role in the designing of our phase 3 trial. We saw a differentiated hazard ratio compared to the all-comers hazard ratio, which we were very excited about. So, but what's exciting, and we spend a lot of time talking about the HRD positive subgroup because the hazard ratio is now in the 0.441 range, which is remarkable. But what's also exciting is then the remainder of the patients, the HR proficient patients, also had a immunon treatment effect. So Dr. Thacker just showed a forest plot, lined up all the subgroups, all of the endpoints, and when you see studies that really demonstrate to the left of a line, which is showing across all the endpoints you've measured and all the subgroups, an effect that is favoring, immunon, the women that were treated. That gives you a lot of confidence as you're going then into phase 3 that this is something that's real and it's measurable. Seeing it early in the course, so PFS, which is really targeting an early effect. Some of the other clinical endpoints like the chemotherapy response score, the surgical response score, really are looking at that very early set of treatments. And then overall survival, really looking at the long term. So it is a very exciting moment because for the first time we're seeing an immunotherapy actually moving the needle and prolonging life in these women.
Absolutely. Exciting is the word because, as you say, the unmet need is very real and this potential is, exciting.
Yeah.
So let's ground our discussion now in the wider oncology field. And I was wondering if you could comment on emerging therapies or technologies that A, you think are being overhyped and or B, are being underappreciated.
So it's an interesting question. And, I, across my career, have covered many different diseases and including spending a lot of time in the world of neurology. So it's really been fun. I've been in my job. I've just had my first anniversary actually joining IMUNON. And it's so amazing when you step back and you look at the progress that we've made across many cancers, right, that now are becoming treatable. The targets, if I start with targets and I think about, the diseases that are similar to ovarian cancer and the fact that they're often coming very late, they're not coming with symptoms, therefore early diagnosis, or we don't have screening that's allowing for treatments to be pursued right earlier in the disease course. I'm thinking pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer is very much the same. It is 80% of women are diagnosed in late stage, and that's really stacking the cards against them. And, you think about glioblastoma, there are diseases where you have, I would say that you could look from a drug development perspective and think these are graveyards, right? These are places where drugs have not been successful, and you've seen lots of lots of products fail. So when I step back and I'm learning even still about, really all of the competitive landscape, there's so much that helps us, as we compare across different types of cancers, solid tumors. I think the immune checkpoint inhibitor, getting to the specific question you asked, we've been targeting and thinking, ovarian is the one place where immune checkpoint inhibitors have not been successful, and yet they have been wildly successful in other places. And I think a lot of that goes back to if the tumors are cold, they're not going to be very responsive or effective to immune checkpoint inhibitors. Our therapy is actually converting and changing these tumors to hot tumors. And so, a budding area, perhaps would be for places where other approaches, including, immune checkpoint inhibitors, if your targets, are remaining cold of a treatment that is allowing that conversion, that then could bring a second punch, if you will, and allow for an effect of a very effective class, but one that's really failed, in ovarian cancer.
I think that was a brilliant answer, to be honest with you. It's a fresh answer, as listeners will know from watching the other PharmaForum ASCO content. So my final question, Stacey, is if you could solve one major problem in oncology over the next decade, what would it be?
It's going to be bringing forward a frontline treatment for newly diagnosed women in ovarian cancer. And, I'm amazed as I walk around in just my daily life, how many people I interact with when they find out what I'm working on will tell me about a sister or tell me about a wife. We have a phenomenal guy that is helping us in the investor space, and he lost his wife very early to ovarian cancer. And it just becomes very personal. And to think that in 25 plus years that we're still treating women largely the same way when they're diagnosed as we were 25 years ago, we have to be doing better than that. And that is absolutely what we expect to do to bring forward this phase. We're actually enrolling patients, so the trial is activated, and we're anxiously waiting our first patient to be enrolled. And to replicate these findings, I think I'll end with actually a statement that one of the people in our session commented on at the mic, asking questions. It was actually a physician who got up and remarked at her statement was, "This is a milestone to see immunotherapy and this big of an effect in overall survival in newly diagnosed women with ovarian cancer." So that is absolutely our wish, and we hope to see it materialize and to talk to you throughout the progress that we make over the next few years.
Absolutely, and I look forward to that conversation. Thank you, Stacey. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And so that concludes another episode of the PharmaForum podcast. You can find more information about this episode, including a download link and information about previous instalments at pharmaforum.com/podcasts. The PharmaForum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, and pretty much wherever you get your other podcasts. Just search for PharmaForum and press subscribe. Of course, don't forget to visit our website itself, where you can sign up for daily and weekly news and analysis bulletins. And do follow us as well on X or Twitter and LinkedIn at PharmaForum. That's all for now. Thank you for listening.